absolute delight to be here. And I know in saying that, I've just given everyone online a massive bout of FOMO and commiserations, because I know there were certainly some people who really did want to be here, and COVID got in the way. I think it's happening to rather a lot of us at the moment. I had a COVID week myself last week, but it's all fine now. And I'd also like to give an absolutely extra special welcome. First of all, to Amanda. We have just gone through this, who formerly is Lord Commissioner of HM Treasury, and that just doesn't feel right, calling you Lord Commissioner. So I was going to instead introduce you as one of the best ever ex-science ministers.
Oh, thank you.
I'm only saying one of, because, you know, we're online. So all of those other science ministers that will be watching.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, we know the truth, don't we? We know the truth. And also Professor Helen James, OBE, no less. Congratulations to you again on that, for services to education, I believe. So very appropriate here. I'm just going to say a few words just to put the kind of context here. So over the last 12 months or so, we've had a great deal of focus on strategy, which has been like fantastic for me, having been here about 8 months. Is really, really great timing. And the one thing I would say is the focus on simplicity is really, really fantastic. You know, we're going to set a very, very clear direction. So we've got our mission, improving the world through engineering. You're going to hear that a lot of times today. It's going to be said many, many times again, because there are umpteen ways, immeasurable number of ways in which we do indeed improve the world through engineering. So I won't dwell on that point now, because I think that's going to be very ably covered. And also our vision to be global, world-leading and inclusive. Now, let's just pause for a minute, because those aren't just glib statements, right? World-leading means we have got to be looking forwards. We've got to be providing the thought leadership that will turn out the engineers we need for the future, for the challenges facing the future of society. It's really important. Global. Incredibly, we have this global footprint in 140 different countries. We can really make the most of drawing together all those skills and expertise. And inclusive. We're not just talking about a small section of society here. We have to create an environment that is welcoming to everyone and thereby generate the greatest pool of talent. So really exciting. And to do this, to deliver this, we're just going to do two things. Just two things, everyone. It's very simple. We will be supporting and developing engineers, enabling them to operate at their best. And that means, you know, having access to upskilling, reskilling throughout their careers. And there's lots to be said for the role of education there. But I'm not going to dwell on this at this point, because instead, I think today we're much more about our second objective, which is making sure we maximise the positive impact of those engineers towards society. And here, we're really focusing on bringing through the next generation of engineers. Now, of course, there's lots of people doing this, right? Let's be humble for a moment. There's lots and lots of people doing outreach. There's lots and lots of people promoting STEM, and it's important to take note of that wider context. So what have we got? Well, blimey, we've got a massive opportunity, and I will crystallise that by saying we've got 115,000 members. Right, therein is a massive opportunity to deliver some real impact. We also have local context, and that's really, really important. A lot of our most impactful activities are delivered because we have a presence in academia, in industry, in schools, in local government, in that local context. So we know how to make our activities the most impactful. Frankly, I'm really excited. I'm not going to talk about it for too long because I know it's a bit of a soapbox. That same local context, I feel convinced, will enable us to deliver a really powerful work experience programme, but we'll perhaps come to that a little bit later. And then just to come to the specific focus of today, our STEM Ambassador programme. I only recently found this out. I find this astonishing. We've got 7,500 STEM ambassadors at IMechE, 7,500. That's nearly a third of all the STEM ambassadors in the UK. This is a fantastic contribution from our membership. It's really, really something to be celebrated, and really, really something to be proud of. And we hope that through events such as this, we're going to make sure that we can support each and every one of those STEM ambassadors and make sure that we deliver that really, really vital goal of seeing the next pipeline of engineers contributing their positive impact to society. So, without further ado, I am going to hand over to Amanda. We'll just call her the best ever science minister, as well as a myriad of other things that she will probably be too humble to mention. But the floor is yours, Amanda.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you. And it genuinely is one of the greatest pleasures to be here. And not only because it's great to talk about this fantastic and worthwhile cause, but also I am secretly in love with Alice. There it is. I have declared it. I absolutely adore Alice. And I was saying earlier, I actually have the Alice T-shirt at home. But we and a great ambassador, I think, for everything that we're trying to achieve here. What I'd like to do is just maybe do a little bit of scene setting and tell you why I am so passionate about making sure that we get STEM education and really encourage all those engineers of the future. And for me, it is not something that I have just suddenly come to. It's not just something that Alice phoned me about last week and said, hey, can you come and do a speech? It's actually something that I have believed in passionately for as long as I can remember. And I have been a school governor now for 20 years. It's one of the things, even as a member of Parliament, that I kept up. I actually did girl guiding for 20 years as well, because I just believe if we invest in our young people, it really is the opportunity it takes us forward to the future. So I just wanted to reflect a little bit on the past, if I may. And I really wanted to acknowledge one of the greatest people I've ever come across, who was my nan. And she was 97 when she died a few years ago. And she was an absolute inspiration. And in fact, I remember 2 years before she died, she was actually still going on Excel spreadsheet courses. It was just phenomenal. And she'd go, oh, you know, I'm just seeing this. And every day was just something that she learned something new. And that was her philosophy. And when I look back and when I think about all the things that she learnt and did in her life, you know, it's amazing. When I think she lived through 2 world wars, when she, you know, cars were really not a commonplace, telephones were not commonplace, laptops, you know, all beyond the wildest of comprehension. And through her 97 years, the amazing changes that she must have seen, and all based on science, all based on this amazing gift that we sometimes actually take for granted. But I also was thinking about my mum, actually. And my mum was another amazing lady. And she very typically, I'm 60 now, but very typically she left school at 16 and became a lab technician. And again, she really loved it because she often used to talk about her time as a lab technician, but it was too short a time, because what happened in those days was you had a career, you had a role, and then you got married, and then you had a family. And I think that was a waste of a talent, actually, because my mum had an awful lot to offer. She was amazing love of literature, an amazing love of art, an amazing love of science. And that passion she certainly instilled in myself and then subsequently my daughters. So I'd just like to fast forward very briefly to here and now, and maybe the future as well. And I have the greatest of privileges of being a grandmother. And anybody here who is a grandparent will know that it is the most amazing of privileges. And my granddaughter calls me Gigi. Alice, forgive me for this, which is gorgeous granny. I insisted that, so she calls me Gigi. And I am her Gigi. And it's fantastic. We've got joint passes to go to the zoo, which is really interesting. She's learning all about animals. But when I think about what we went through in the pandemic, as an example, and she was growing up FaceTiming. She was used to seeing Gigi in this phone. She now is 2.5 and fantastic at using that technology. It's absolutely incredible. And she knows how, she's got a little sort of toy iPad. She knows how to work her way around a laptop. So her start point is incredible when you think about my nan's start point and then my granddaughter's start point. It is absolutely phenomenal. And I think one of the things, and I know we've said this before, but the pandemic has clearly afforded a lot of opportunity for science. And I don't really think I'm going to ever get tired of saying that, because it has given us an opportunity to work collectively. Certainly in the UK, it's given us an opportunity to demonstrate just how brilliant we are at so many things that we do. So I was thinking about you talked about me being science minister. It was the greatest job. It was fantastic, thoroughly enjoyed it, and had the privilege to go and see some of the incredible things that we're doing in this country and collectively around the world. And I think about fusion, you know, it's astounding. I know we're far away, but we are getting closer, and that will change lives. It really will change lives. Certainly, I believe my granddaughters. And thinking about space, I mean, that's where we met in the, you know, from a space connection, and the opportunities that we have. Anybody who's watching me being streamed into their office at the minute, that is thanks to technology. It's thanks to all those amazing things that are sort of going on around us. And then I was thinking about my great uncle, actually. He died the year I was born, and he was in the World War II. And unfortunately, he was in the RAF, actually, and he got the Distinguished Flying Cross. And he had a crash and could no longer walk. And so he spent subsequently 30 years of his life in a wheelchair, not being able to move from the neck down. But we are now making so many advances. We're seeing prosthetic limbs, we're seeing all of these things, we're seeing these external skeletons that enable people who can't walk to walk. That is life-changing, that is fantastic, and that is why we do what we do. So as from a Science Minister government point of view, I had the great privilege of working on the roadmap, which articulated all the things that we need to do, which is around innovation, making sure that we're enabling innovation. I also had one of the greatest of pleasures in introducing the People and Culture Strategy, because for me, what we need to do is we really need to be, as you were saying earlier, nurturing talent, really engaging enthusiastically, really just making sure that we make these opportunities available for people. So I had a great, a great desire to do that. And you also mentioned very briefly about local impact. And one of the things that I'm doing at the moment is working with the University of Nottingham, Loughborough and Derby, just thinking about how we engage from a STEM point of view. But for me, I guess that the final messages really are that it's all well and good for us to, or for me to stand here and talk about this is what we need to do. What we need to do is we really do need to act. That is singularly the most important thing. I'm an activist. I know that you're an activist. And it is all around just making sure that we are supporting education. It is all around making sure that we do support all of those opportunities. And I just wanted to share, again, just a personal story, really. I never believed that I could become a Member of Parliament, which is why I did it for so late. I wish I'd done it earlier. And the biggest stop to that was confidence. I just didn't believe that I could do it. And actually, I mean, ironically, I did do physics for my GCSEs. But I didn't believe in myself. I had no A-levels really to talk of. I certainly haven't got a degree. I just didn't think that I would ever have the opportunity to do anything. But I think if we can instill in young people confidence, that is so important. It's one of the single most important things that we can do is not just hear, but listen to young people. And I think one of the challenges that we have is around career education. Maybe we'll have some questions about that, because I think it is a challenge, actually, how we really get into schools. Final thing I wanted to say was it is about confidence. It is about inspiring. And I remember the day that we met the amazing Tim Peake, and a great ambassador. And I just sort of hit it off with him. I don't know whether you'll remember me or not, actually. But we had in common this love of young people. I did, as I say, Girl Guiding for 20 years. He's an ambassador for the Scouts. And just around how do we really inspire young people? And we had a great conversation. I thought no more about it. It was approaching Christmas. And he very kindly sent me his book. And it was signed, and it said, "To Amanda, great to meet you," from Tim Peake. And I thought, oh, wow, that's amazing. And then a couple of weeks later, when I had a bit of more spare time, I opened an envelope that was inside the book. And inside the book, there were 3 postcards. One was to my eldest daughter, saying, just a few words. One was to my youngest daughter, again, a few words. And then there was one to my granddaughter. And it said to my granddaughter's name. And all it said simply was, "Aim high." And she now has that in a little sort of picture frame in her bedroom from Tim Peake saying aim high. And that, I'm going goosebumpy thinking about it, because that is the gift that we should give to young people to get them interested in this amazing, amazing profession. Thank you.
I was going to introduce you. I think you've got there first.
Yeah,
I did.
So, good morning, everybody, and I'm really delighted to be able to speak to you all this morning. Thank you, Alice, and thank you, Amanda, for your introductions and your setting the scene. I'm particularly delighted because we're in one birdcage walk, but also we have many members that are online, including international members as well, that are signing in this morning. So it's really great to be able to speak to them. I'm hugely grateful to Alice and her team, as well as the huge, significant contributions made by members that have elevated education to be one of our 4 strategic priorities. At this outset, I would like to pay particular tribute to members, and one in particular here today, that, and I know there are many that are not, but Professor Fred Maladay, who over many, many years pressed council, trustees, basically anyone, Fred, is that not true, who would listen, and many others who actually didn't listen, but to take education seriously as a key priority. And I'm particularly delighted, and absolutely I know that we're all indebted to you and colleagues that have pressed and pressed for your patience, doggedness and persuasive influences over the years. A huge thank you very much. So I'm particularly thrilled we're able to launch our education priority today, inspiring, enthusing, motivating the next generation of engineers, as well as being able to shape the career progression of those that are already in the profession. Perhaps engineering technicians progressing to incorporated engineers, or simply to be the very best that they can be, is fulfilling and rewarding, and I would argue is part of our professional responsibilities as engineers. Technology capabilities are increasing at a phenomenal rate, and COVID-19 has fast-forwarded technological innovations, jobs are changing, and actually we can't predict what the jobs of the future are going to be. However, there are things that we can do, and indeed are doing. We're already building engineers' capital in young people, teachers and parents, reskilling and upskilling our workforce. The work of our divisions, regions and the learning and development team are absolutely crucial here. Making sure we engage with, support the informal learning sector, for example, science centres and festivals, fabulous organisations such as Primary Engineer, who it's great to see representatives of this morning, Engineering UK, STEM Learning, and all the wonderful engineering outreach work supported by this institution's engineers, but also IET, other professional engineering institutions, and of course the Royal Academy of Engineering. We have thousands of members actively engaged, and I thank you all for everything that you do. We're engaging, supporting and challenging our schools, colleges and universities to ensure that STEM, and more specifically engineering capital, knowledge and skills are being developed. Our student challenges, such as Formula Students, are great examples, but members are also governors, and many support our universities' accreditation work of their courses. And finally, I would also include influencing government across departments, science, but innovation, business and education, and other policy makers. And I'm particularly grateful, Amanda, for you joining us this morning. Members also influence education and skills through their own networks. Of our 115,000 members, the vast majority are in employment, are employers themselves, or have access to business and education. As members, we have the power to be a positive influence of change. We can encourage and support the take-up of apprenticeships, graduate employment, and improve progression practices, and act as mentors and coaches to support engineers to be the very best of themselves possible. We also have the potential to provide work experience through our organisations, support GCSE engineering, the new T-levels in engineering and manufacturing starting in September this year in England, BTEC qualifications in our devolved nations, professional recognition internationally, and huge opportunities to engage with universities through projects and being part of their learning ecosystem. Ensuring our education system from nursery through to lifelong learning develops STEM and specifically engineering capital surely has to be a priority for us all. The need has never been greater as we come out of COVID, or at least learn to live with it. Life has not yet returned to normal. Schools have reduced teacher capacity due to infections. Pupils' absenteeism rate remains high. Pupils' mental ill health and behaviours are still at challenging levels, and exams are looming. Schools are striving to provide pupils with catch-up provision, whilst also wanting to increase external engagement. And I was really heartened yesterday when I met Engineering UK about the Big Bang that's happening in June. And they said that they already had 35,000 people, visitors, ready to attend the event. This is so promising and encouraging to us all. Engineering has to be the most exciting, visual, tactile, influential and impactful profession of any. I know I'm biased, but it cuts across all others, and we are integral to society, health and well-being, travel, leisure, and the economy, indeed absolutely everything. The current war in Ukraine is, however, unfortunately, also revealing the power of engineering in attack warfare, but crucially also in defence and in humanitarian and the sustainability of our planet contexts. Engineers are creative. We are collaborators, communicators, problem solvers, as well as researchers, designers, manufacturers, managers, and leaders. We function across vast areas of work in different sections. Designing and manufacturing baby prams and pushchairs, household items, chairs, tables, fridges and lighting, everyday things that you see. Bespoke solutions to enable people with particular disabilities to live independently. Travel, pedal and e-bikes, cars, hybrid, electric, aeroplanes, private jets, short haul, long haul, you name it. Railways, off-site manufacturing and assembly of buildings. Engineers are working in teams to combat the impact of climate change, flood defences, or indeed ensuring that satellite technology to monitor the Earth's surface. The list is endless. Engineers are everywhere. We infiltrate absolutely everything. Great, isn't it? What a privilege and trusted position we are in. Opportunities are vast, global as well as local, and providing great salaries and career progression opportunities. It is a fantastic profession that should be accessible to all, and all should be enabled to flourish and have successful and fulfilling careers, regardless of postcode, gender, race, age, or disability. I welcome education being a priority. I'm hugely grateful for the incredible work of members, of staff, and especially Jelena, sat at the front, who you'll hear from in a moment, for their fantastic work, particularly during the pandemic, in rapidly moving to online outreach support, providing teachers, parents, and pupils with engineering resources to continue their learning. I will finish with a thank you to all members who are already actively involved in education and skills work, and I hope today's event that others will follow your lead. Thank you very much indeed. welcome Jelena. Thank you.
Every year, the institution circulates our corporate survey, inviting feedback from members. And each year, our membership overwhelmingly indicates that promoting education to the next generation and professional registration are among their top priorities. I'm personally delighted that education has been elevated within the IMechE and has been included as an institutional priority, alongside sustainability and climate change, future transport, and managing infectious diseases. Education has been given even greater importance with the increased general awareness of global challenges and more recently following the disruption students suffered during the COVID-19 pandemic. IMechE members who get involved in education outreach on behalf of the institution belong to our STEM Ambassador programme. Our STEM Ambassador programme lies at the heart of the IMechE and currently engages over 7,500 UK members who generously volunteer their time and expertise. The programme is delivered in collaboration with STEM Learning UK and aims to equip members engaging in outreach with the right skill set to inspire and inform young people. Our STEM ambassadors are a key asset to the institution and we are dedicated to supporting them. We provide educational materials across key stages of 1 to 4, STEM toolkits, a dedicated 3D printer loan scheme designed to spark the imagination of young people and attract a diverse range of students into STEM. In conjunction with Tomorrow's Engineers, we have created careers resources which inform parents and children at all ages and can be used at careers fairs and engagement opportunities. We encourage members to participate in our dedicated STEM Ambassador training sessions to ensure that members representing the institution can shine as positive role models and feel confident in doing so. We use our voice to promote key initiatives such as Primary Engineer, Inspiring Governance, STEMazing, and many others, as well as providing outreach opportunities across the institution. All of our resources have been created through a combination of working with sector specialists and the membership itself to ensure that we capture and pass on the wealth of experience and knowledge we have. As part of this, we have been working to simplify the STEM Ambassador Induction process, and I'm very proud to share our new STEM Ambassador Induction video with you today.
At the Institution of Mechanical Engineers, we believe that engineers have an incredibly important role in society and in solving the biggest challenges facing the world today. From ensuring we are responding appropriately to climate change, to ensuring we are creating sustainable solutions to everyday living, we need a broad range of skills to help us improve the world through engineering. The IMechE's key aims are to develop engineers, promote engineering, inform opinion, and encourage innovation. IMechE STEM ambassadors play a vital role in sharing our vision and in helping the institution achieve these goals. Our STEM ambassadors get involved in education outreach to promote STEM subjects and raise awareness about career routes. This helps us to equip the next generation with a skill set that will enable them to tackle problems affecting us all. We are looking for members with a passion for engineering and education. Join us in our mission to infuse young people and showcase the diverse and exciting world of engineering. In this video, I'll explain how to become an IMechE STEM ambassador, why becoming an ambassador is so important, and the help and support you can expect from us along the way. Our aim is to promote the value of engineering and problem solving as a whole to the parents and students we engage with. Our dedicated network of STEM ambassadors allows us to fulfill this vision by taking part in educational outreach across the UK. To help us, we're seeking a diverse range of engineers at all stages in their careers, from affiliates to fellows. We need people who are both passionate and enthusiastic about engineering. Becoming an IMechE STEM ambassador is an excellent opportunity to develop your own skills through training and experience. there are a few important steps and actions that are necessary to become an IMechE STEM Ambassador. Firstly, you'll need to register your interest via STEM Learning. All registration information can be found on our website at imeche.org/STEM-ambassadors. It is a legal requirement for anyone working with children in the UK to complete a basic disclosure and barring service or DBS check. This is done by STEM Learning. Once you've passed your DBS, please get in touch at ambassador@imeche.org. We can then add you to our IMechE list of active ambassadors and put you in touch with a regional representative. We also have a policy for working with children and vulnerable adults, designed to ensure that safeguarding is at the forefront of all outreach activity. We provide training and resources to help at every stage of your STEM ambassador career. So let's look at the support that we offer. Being a STEM ambassador is a fun and fulfilling journey, and along the way you will be met with new experiences and unexpected challenges. Through many hours of volunteering ourselves, we have found that the best way to ensure success as an ambassador is to make sure that you're prepared. On our STEM at Home web pages, you can find free downloadable learning resources to help you assemble affordable materials and plan a variety of different STEM outreach activities. We provide free toolkits exclusively for IMechE STEM ambassadors. These include reusable materials and lesson plans. You can find out more about these and how to get one on our website. We offer a program of free live training webinars run by experienced IMechE STEM ambassadors, happy to share their knowledge and experience with you. Further practical guidance is available in our STEM Ambassador Handbook, and we provide promotional materials to help you engage with potential audiences. We will also provide guidance on how you can complete a risk assessment before you visit schools or other venues. We even have the opportunity to loan 3D printers from our partners. For us to be able to deliver on our strategic objective, we need to be able to measure the impact our activities are having from a learning and engagement perspective. Our evaluation form does exactly this. After each workshop, we ask our STEM ambassadors to ensure that the children answer 6 simple questions which enable us to understand the value of each workshop, as well as the impact from all of our activities put together. This in turn helps us to improve and grow our outreach. Once you are fully registered as an IMechE STEM ambassador, there are many opportunities to get involved. With the wide range of activities available, you can commit as much time as you are comfortable devoting to the role. We also encourage our STEM ambassadors to independently research opportunities and get involved in local outreach or particular initiatives that may be of interest. Together, we can drive innovation and engineering excellence throughout the UK. Go to imeche.org/STEM ambassadors to start your journey as an IMechE STEM ambassador today.
As part of the IMechE's wider digital transformation, I'm also delighted to launch new careers and education web pages on the IMechE website today. We have streamlined content to make information more accessible, inclusive, and engaging to our audience. And in the coming months, we will be working hard to improve our digital presence further. As part of this, we have created a new impact evaluation tool that was just referred to in the video, so that we can begin to gather data and more strategically approach our outreach activities. For this to work, we require our ambassadors engaging in outreach to feedback to us via the form, and I would invite you to do so. We've also created a new partners page, and we'll be focusing on strengthening those relationships and greater collaboration going forward. There has never been a greater need for engineers in the world, and education outreach is inherent to getting a more diverse range of people with the right skill set into the engineering profession. I would like to take this opportunity to encourage members to consider getting involved and contributing to the IMechE's vision of improving the world through engineering. Finally, I would personally like to say a big thank you to members that already do so much for the IMechE. Thank you. And now we will move on to our panel discussion. So we will begin by taking a few questions that we have prepared, and then we will ask the audience in the room. If you have any questions, pass the mic around, as well as take online questions. So I would encourage anybody attending virtually to please put your questions through in the chat, and we will pick that up along the way. So in order to sort of set the scene a little bit further, I think we would start with, what role do engineers play in today's society?
Who are you looking at first?
Let me see. I think it was yourself. Or
You go first.
Okay, I can go first. Well, quite simply, where don't they, I think, is really the answer. And we've heard a bit about that already, haven't we? So I won't go on to list all those different areas. I mean, it's already been said, we have decided that we really need to focus our efforts across 4 policy priorities to have that maximum impact. So climate sustainability, future transport, infectious disease control, and education in the room, online, everybody, as being that thing that underpins all those priorities. The thing that strikes me as well, and I do think there's a fantastic opportunity here for professional engineering institutions such as ourselves to seize, and personally I would love for us to be at the forefront, you know, really giving the thought leadership. A statistic, it is said, 85% of the jobs that we will do in 2030 are unknown today. It could be 80, could be, 75, could be 90, but the point being, we have to prepare for a whole set of challenges, engineering challenges that are not yet known today. So there's lots and lots of different interventions that we have to make along the way, including the kind of outreach that we're talking today, but also, which was referenced, I think, Helen, you referenced it, didn't you? Looking at university courses, looking at whether or not those university courses are equipping students with the right skills that they are going to need to tackle the engineering challenges of the future. And those engineering challenges, well, I haven't got a crystal ball, so I'm not going to predict them, but I think we can be sure that there will be challenges ahead in climate sustainability. I think we can be sure that there will be challenges ahead in healthcare, infectious disease control, and also in future transport. So that's where we're placing our bets.
Thank you. Amanda, would you have anything further to add?
Well, I don't actually, but it is literally everything that we touch, isn't it? It's everywhere. It's so important. And I think what you say about start point and thinking where we are now and things that we don't know, and we don't know what it is we don't know, and we don't know. I'd love to say, I don't know whether anybody here is a Star Trek fan, but I'm a great Star Trek fan, yes. And one of the bills introduced was the ARIA bill, which has just recently got royal assent. And in there, one of the things I envisaged was this transporting people from one place to another. I mean, wouldn't that be incredible if we could do that? But actually, we who knows? We may be able to do that. But I've got nothing to add, actually, Alice. I mean, I just think it's absolutely crucial. But you went over a whole spectrum there of things. And I mean, I would like to come back on careers and things, but maybe we'll be doing that a bit later. So
Perhaps.
Well, only very briefly, I think I would suggest as well that engineers, we've got engineering technicians, we've got incorporated engineers, and we've got chartered engineers within the institution. And all those jobs at those different levels are going to change. And so it's really important that we have a really robust approach to supporting career development and professional development across all those levels. Otherwise, I think it may be that, well, we're already seeing, aren't we, that businesses are really struggling at that incorporated engineer type level, kind of level 5, recruiting people into the industry at that level. And I think as a profession, we have a real responsibility to make sure that we are developing the skills, really, of that future. And it's going to be less, I think, about the technical content. I think as engineers, sometimes we get really hung up about all the technical stuff that needs to be in courses, rather than actually how to learn, how to research, how to be at the forefront. So the thinking, the creativity, the problem solving, rather than regurgitating facts about a theory that's been around for the last X number of 100 years.
Thank you.
Just to be a bit controversial.
It's always good. I think we've already touched on this, and there's no way sort of from getting away from it, but it's key to address what has been the impact of COVID on education and skills, perhaps in the positive way and the negatives.
So shall I mean, I covered quite a bit in my opener, I think, but the area that I didn't cover was one of diversity and inclusion. And it's a personal reflection of at Canterbury Christchurch University and seeing who has engaged in the kind of online provision. So when universities went online, we actually saw an uptake of engagement from commuting students, women in particular, people of colour. And that's really quite, I think, really quite profound, so that they were engaging much more proactively than they had previously been. And I think we tend to think about going online has been really disruptive for people. Actually, for some people, it has given confidence, it's given an enabling mechanism for them to be more actively engaged in their learning. I think also I would encourage people to look at the STEM Learning website, where there are case studies of really successful online STEM. And again, I think we tend to think about, going online and therefore that STEM outreach has been really disruptive. Well, it has been disrupted, but actually there's been some fabulous work done which has really transformed how we do outreach work that isn't necessarily about the physical element of interacting. So I'll probably pause there, if that's okay.
Amanda, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think the way we communicate, the way we learn has changed. And I think there's two things. I think there's the positive, and then clearly there's some negatives as well. And the positives, I remember our first Zoom meetings and Teams, and now it's just absolutely, it's just part of our everyday life, isn't it? And it's fantastic. It's a great way to communicate, not just from in the United Kingdom, but also internationally as well. And I love that. I think that is a fantastic thing that we can do. I think it's been really helpful from an education point of view as well. And I've certainly been going into schools, and I've not been physically going into schools, but I've been zoomed into schools, and even going into, I've got a local deaf school as an example, Royal School for the Deaf, and just being able to communicate over Zoom has been absolutely fantastic, and I think a great step forward, and that won't change. I think that will stay now part of our society. I guess the downside, and you mentioned it really clearly, is around the mental health issues that have happened. And as a school governor, it's one of the things that certainly locally we're being very mindful of, and I know other schools will be as well. And it's really the one thing, and I know I talk about my granddaughter a lot, but I do adore her, as you can probably gather. But throughout the whole of the pandemic, she had the amazing opportunity to her dad is a nurse, community nurse. So that meant he was a key worker, therefore she was going into nursery. And it was a really important part of what she did, that interaction, talking to people, playing with other children. And she has, I think that's been one of the single hardest things, was actually getting young people back into that kind of environment. They've missed out on so many social skills. And we do need to be really, really mindful of that, I think, as well. So, and the other thing I was thinking, I like storytelling, as you can probably tell. And storytelling is really important. But I also think play is really important when you're learning. And that's another gift that you have, it's really difficult to do when you're virtually, and now it's great that we are getting back and going into schools and interacting as well. So I think we have positives and negatives on that.
Yeah, and just, coming in on that, building on that, because I think that if we're talking about engineering in the round now, the tremendous ability of our engineering creativity to enable children to get back into the classroom, cannot be understated. So mental health as well. I've got 4 kids, let me tell you, homeschooling, no picnic. I want to talk about the mental health of the kids, talk about the mental health of the parents as well, for goodness sake. So, joking aside, it's really, really important to be able to get kids back into school. And I've been absolutely delighted by some of the work that's gone on in, if you like, a slightly different part of our membership, where they've been looking at the use of UV sanitisers, air sanitising equipment, to clean the air, to enable us to get back to enable kids to get back to school. Actually, the focus of their effort was working with the NHS and using that same kit to make sure the NHS wards didn't become a breeding ground for COVID. But that same technology could be rolled out to schools, and by the way, it stops then the windows being left open all the time and the heating bills going through the roof. Oh wait, the heating bills are going through the roof anyway. But you get the point, and climate change. So that role of engineering towards enabling us to go back, enabling children to go back into a more constructive learning environment, I think is tremendously powerful.
I think as a parent, I'd have to agree with you wholeheartedly with that. So on to the next question, and Alice, if you wouldn't mind, starting with this one. What role do professional engineering institutions play in influencing education and skills?
Yeah, again, that's a really broad one, isn't it? So I'm going to give you an analogy I often use. I think when you're talking about trying to achieve any particular educational or career impact, you're not talking about a single intervention. It's much better to think of it as rungs on a ladder. So what's the IMechE ladder? What does that look like? Well, there's all sorts of things that we can do. I think there's some quite early stage interventions, the lower rungs of that ladder, which is quite often around the primary level engagement and the outreach that we do there. Work experience, I've got to talk about work experience, again, sorry, bringing all my stuff to the table. But work experience is really, really hard. I mean, if you think about the barriers for children entering the engineering sector, I think one of the biggest barriers is they just don't know what it is. And it's very difficult to explain that. And yet, it's such a wonderfully practical, pragmatic sector. You can give a really, really meaningful work experience in the engineering sector in a way that is quite difficult for many other sectors, actually. And again, I just think we're sitting on a massive opportunity here. The combination of bringing together at the local level, kids with industry in their area, and that can be in the UK, it can be globally. I've got to give a shout out. The launch of our online offer this year has already seen over 750 kids sign up. 750 kids. It's extraordinary. So that's another rung of the ladder, slightly higher up. I'll stop in a minute and let others come in. But then just finally, I think this point that we've mentioned already around making sure that we are fit for the future, making sure that the experience of kids at university is the right kind of experience, they're developing the right kind of skills and expertise to enable them to tackle the challenges of the future is really, really important. It all gets a bit techie at this point, doesn't it? And it's all around accreditation, and these are processes that are quite long and ultimately set at Engineering Council, but administered through the professional engineering institutions. And I think that there's a real challenge there, and if we're not careful, we'll be left behind. We've got to be able to move at pace. I'm sure Helen's got more to say on this point, so I will stop there.
I'll probably pick it up under another question rather than going into the university. I think what I would say is I think there's a real powerful agenda around collaboration. I think that the Institution of Mechanical Engineers can do things on their own. There are certain aspects that we can do on our own, but actually we've got to be part of a much bigger movement, and that's collaboration. And we already collaborate significantly with Susan, primary engineer, in terms of STEM learning, but IET, crucial organisation, and we jointly fund small grants to a whole range of different organisations and it's really about that infusing and equipping young people, teachers, with that engineering capital, and more engineering capital rather than the STEM capital. It's really important as a professional engineering institution that we do actually focus on engineering. And of course, all our members are naturally collaborating in regions, both locally within the UK, devolved nations, and internationally. They're not only collaborating with mechanical engineers, they're collaborating across disciplines. So it really is important that we recognise what's going on within the regions to get a much more, I think, sophisticated way of collaborating and influencing.
Amanda, do you have any?
Well, I was just thinking, actually, all really important points you're making, and as you probably tell from my accent now, I'm from the Midlands, so I'm from Derby, and there's lots of amazing things that we do in Derby. I mean, we like to think we're the heart of engineering with Rolls-Royce, Toyota, etc. But still, it remains a challenge around work experience. You were talking about work experience, and I don't know what the answer is, actually, because how do you give that richness of experience to acknowledging that there will be some children will be skilled in one things, other young people will be skilled in another. I think it's a really difficult challenge. If we could really sort of get to how we do that, and I also think in terms of careers advice as well. Again, it's an absolute challenge, and I genuinely don't think we've ever managed to really sort of head and tail that, because again, I don't know how we do that, getting in. And I like the idea of using technology to do that, and I think it's great the work that you're doing. But I wonder if then the feeling, the touching, knowing what it's like, is how we get to that point. I don't know. Maybe that's a challenge for the future, and it has to be the right kind of experience as well that we're doing. So massive challenge, I think.
I'm really interested, though, in that virtual work experience, whether actually by running that, we are opening up opportunities to new people that otherwise wouldn't have thought about engineering, or wouldn't have the confidence to, but actually somehow an online experience is less challenging for them. So people from lower participation postcodes, women, disabled people, for example. So I'm really interested in kind of understanding a bit more who's actually engaging.
Just to link on to that, the plug is coming now. Our Spring Pod virtual mechanical engineering work experience is live and open to students. And one of the key aspects was addressing how we attract non-traditional STEM devotees. So I think we've promoted it ahead. We'll see how we get on. I'm conscious of time, so we'll just cover a couple more questions before we take some from the room. I think, again, we've touched on this, but there's a lot more to be discussed. So how can we ensure that more people with the right skills take up engineering as a career? Alice?
How can we ensure that more people? It's kind of, it's all of the above, isn't it? Really, it's one of those everything questions. I do think there's something. I mean, Amanda just touched on it now. I do think there is something about careers advice, and there is something about understanding. I mean, sometimes, sorry, maybe uncomfortable truth, we probably don't do ourselves a favour, because we talk about engineers as being a very specific thing, and that can be quite difficult to break into. So I think the more that we can do to explain this point around engineering is for everyone. I mean, I know just looking at the people in the room here today, the huge diversity of careers where engineering is the common thread. And I think we need to talk about that a little bit more and make it feel much more accessible. That's got to be the start point. Really difficult to achieve it, as we've said, but I think we, as an institution, it's back to that point. Helen made the point very well. We're not talking about operating in isolation. We're talking about working with partners. We're talking about understanding where we have a unique contribution to make. And I come back to our wonderful members. We've got 115,000 people around the world. Compared to other organisations, that's a very big number. So somehow working together, I think, is how we're going to make a difference in this quite busy landscape.
Indeed. Helen, would you like to come in and then Amanda?
Yeah, I'd probably like to run a full-day seminar on this, because I think it's really integrated, and you need a holistic approach to it. So I think we really need to rethink what we're doing, how we're doing it, who we're doing it with, what we're actually promoting, and that I mean across education levels. I think also within the profession. So I think it's actually quite a big topic. But I also think it needs it needs a regional approach. At the moment, we've got lots of national organisations, all with vested interests. Even if they're committed to collaboration, ultimately, they have boards that they're accountable. Boards are accountable to. And there is something about creating a regional ecosystem, which is including businesses, it includes all levels of education, nursery, it includes parents, it includes government, it includes local authorities. It actually, a whole kind of regional set of stakeholders that are there around supporting society and the growth of the economy, but using engineering and STEM, if you like, more broadly, but I'm kind of drumming the engineering, as the means to increase the kind of economic growth. So, and at the moment you've got massive regional disparity, both from the economy perspective, but you've also got it in terms of accessing level 3 qualifications. Also, what's available at university level across the regions is very, very different. Up until recently, the last 3 years, there was no engineering higher education, either research or education in Kent. There is now. And that's what I mean. It really does need a holistic, where everybody's actually coming together to solve, but we're solving a bigger issue. By that, you then get, I'm sorry, I'm getting on my By that, you get businesses genuinely buying into supporting work experience, because they're not just doing it as an add-on, they're doing it because actually ultimately they're looking for a sustainable workforce. That sustainable workforce is going to come from their locale and their region. So you've got the young people, you've got the teachers that genuinely then understand the importance of science and engineering. You're building their capabilities up so that they can have meaningful conversations. They're in governing bodies. It kind of goes on, but there really is a disparity, particularly at level 3. You know, you will know by now, I'm sure, that an awful lot of schools are not doing A-level physics anymore because of the capital investments that's required. That means you've got a whole body of students that are not going to be able to access the current provision in universities. I'll say current because, in my view, you should scrap A-level physics in as a requirement and build the engineering in to the education offering within a university. So I think there's some really exciting challenges that we all need to be grappling with. And certainly in my role as Chair of Education Skills Board, I will be doing my damnedest to be able to influence all those different dimensions. Thank you.
I think we're getting that.
Amanda, do you
Yes, I all of the above, and I would like, it's one of the things I absolutely care passionately about, and I think the only way that you can achieve this is by having that holistic approach, but I think also you need to sit above all of it as well, so you could literally look in, what do we do in education, what do we do in here, what do we do here, and that's where government has a part to play, and not wishing to get too political, but the levelling up agenda is around that. That's one of the things that we're trying to do, and certainly just enabling all of those things to happen. But it is incredibly difficult. And I was thinking, you were saying, you know, at primary school we need to be doing it. We need to be doing it across all levels of education. And I also think we need to consider, and we haven't mentioned it, but it's something I care quite passionately about, is around apprenticeships as well. That it's not just around, is it going to university, but it's getting those practical skills by doing apprenticeships. I mean, I remember the old YTS scheme, you know, and I loved them actually. The reason why I really liked them was because it was a support, it was a mentor, like you talk about, it was coaching, it was going to the workplace, it was learning all of those workplace skills that you don't necessarily get in the education environment. And so I think all of the above as well. I think the levelling up agenda will absolutely help. I think that's what the white paper is trying to hit on. As you know as well, the innovation strategy, people and culture strategy, one of the things that we worked on together, really about making sure we ensure and enable that diversity. So there's lots and lots of things that happen, but I come back to what I said really at the beginning. We can sit here and talk about it. I just think it's incumbent on all of us to actually really put it into action though, and that's what you guys are doing so well, so thank you for that.
I think that leads us very nicely to our final question, which is about action. And Amanda, if you wouldn't mind starting. So what 3 things would you like to see delivered in the next 12 months?
By whom? I'm not sure. 12. I think that's a really, really difficult question, actually, in 12 months, because I think what we do here and now doesn't necessarily have an impact in 12 months. I think we're planning for 5 years. I think we're planning for 10 years. And I just think what I want to see is action here and now. And I think there are lots of really good things being done, and certainly hearing about your ambassadors. So I'd like to see that being broadcast. I would also like to make sure that we capture all the things that we have learned from a COVID perspective as well. I think that's really important, using all of that interaction. And the most important thing for me, I guess, is my third thing, is just instilling that confidence, is just really enabling anybody who has a little bit of aspiration here to feel as though they can say it, that they won't feel as though they can't do it. And that just breaks my heart if that I want a can-do attitude, not a can't-do.
Thank you. Alice and then Helen, please.
Yeah, what three things? It's a short horizon, isn't it? But I mean, the first one has to be this, right? It has to be, you know, a real uptick in our support and promotion of the wonderful, wonderful STEM ambassadors that we have in the IMechE. We are just... you know, this is a gold mine. It's absolutely incredible. So I would absolutely highlight that as one of the first things that we need to really push on in the next 12 months. The second thing, I'm going to say it again, is the work experience programme. Again, I think there is an untapped opportunity there. And it particularly speaks to the point... so I used to work 20 years in the space sector, you know this well, and space was always, you know, touted out as, you know, the sector that really inspires STEM, yada, yada, yada. And that's right, it's absolutely right. It was very, very true that it is inspiring, but I think we do a complete disservice to the younger generation if we suggest that they're just about, you know, rockets and missions to Mars.
Absolutely.
They are a much, much more purpose-driven generation. And I think an engineering work experience can really, really communicate that. You know, it's the mission, improving the world through engineering, and it happens all the time. And I think the more that we can do to convey that message through that work experience programme, this is about making a difference. You know, it's wonderful. I find it really inspiring. I find the younger generation inspiring, you know, because they really do care. They really do want to do something that matters. So, you know, we must pick up on that. And the third thing... It's not going to happen in 12 months, though. I think the third thing is back to this conversation about what should the university degree, or what should a number of university degrees look like that is going to really support the engineers of the future. It's, dare I say it, it's not a quick thing. There's quite a lot of inertia around driving that change, but we have to start. Just because there's inertia, it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. So I think we have to start, and I would love to see IMechE providing the sort of thought leadership to start moving that dial with all of our partners across the sector, all the other PEIs, with, you know, the Engineering Council, with the Royal Academy. But I would love to see us start to say, no, just because it's difficult, it doesn't mean we're not going to do it. Let's start leading the charge.
Helen?
Yeah, tough, isn't it? So I'm really keen on establishing the scale of our ambition and actually thinking about a long-term trajectory, so thinking about a strategy, but actually having it articulated rather than just moving from tactical intervention to tactical intervention, and you're living in the here and now forever. Actually lifting our heads up, looking at what evidence is out there, not only just from a STEM outreach, but actually education across the piece. And so the second point really is around strategy, and it's about making sure that the outreach strategy actually also joins together in what is our, as an IMechE, education strategy, our education skills strategy. What should that really look like? How are we progressing people from EngTech to incorporated engineer to chartered engineer, if that's the kind of progression route? So for me, it's actually articulating what does education skills mean, not just talk about it, but let's get something articulated about it that provides a bit of a roadmap. So whether you're in a region, whether you're international, whether you're part of the technical strategy board, whether you're in a division, you can see yourself in how to deliver education, because this is not an outreach strategy we're developing. It's not an outreach priority. It's an education priority, which is broader. So that's a rather long one, but strategy, and then the third one is collaboration, really, and whether that's collaboration regions, whether it's divisions, whether it's IET, whether it's other professional institutions, to really deliver value through collaboration rather than in isolation.
Thank you. I'm conscious of time, so I would move on to any questions from the room, and we have some great questions online.
So that hand go up first. So microphones closed, so introductions, you won't hear yourselves. It will be last.
So sorry.
Try and use both microphones and not give too much feedback. Thank you so much for the presentation, to Jelena as well for all her hard work. I was very taken by, certainly, Amanda, you talked very passionately about your family and the generational impact that science and technology has had on your family. And of course, you know, you've all talked about families and children and so on. I'm really interested to ask, how can we, knowing that the majority of parents are not from STEM backgrounds in the UK, how can we encourage parents to get involved in this kind of STEM work that we do? And what can we do as engineers to provide them with equipment, resources, or whatever we can to help them encourage their child who may be showing an interest in science, but they personally don't have any background in it?
I've got to go.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to give Amanda the get out of jail free card because she's already generously given 15 minutes more time than she was able to.
I'm on bench duty, unfortunately. But I think that's a really brilliant question, actually. And I think therein lies a great idea that I'd like to have a think about how we do that. Because we should. We absolutely should. I'm so sorry I've got to go. I do apologise. I can't shout at myself being a whip, you know.
No, absolutely not.
Thank you.
Who's going to take that one first?
Well, I guess there are networks already, I guess, that to try to draw in parents. And I think we really need to think about the informal learning sector in particular in this. So there are science festivals, engineering festivals, Big Bang, governors getting, as engineers, there's a real push around our members getting on governing bodies to be able to influence within schools and network with parents. And part of my positioning around the region very much is around recognising that there is a regional approach, so that the more that parents understand what businesses there are in the region, businesses open themselves up for parents and young people and teachers. Teachers are equipped with an engineering language that many don't have at the moment. It becomes more in the conversation, so that there is more of a drip feed. But in terms of specific activities, Helen, I'm going to throw the hospital pass to Jelena.
Throw it over.
Or to Alice.
Yeah. Well, no, I think you just make a really good point, because I think what we need to be conscious of is, you know, if you have worked in a STEM career, that might feel quite natural. But if you're sitting outside of that, it can be quite daunting. You know, that's the thing that, you know, perhaps I wasn't very good at school, and, you know, that's a bit. So I think you have to find different settings. So, you know, to give an example, a few years ago now, probably 3 years ago, I went to Latitude Festival. And I went to Latitude Festival because I was talking about space, and they gave me a family pass for the whole weekend. And as it turns out, my husband was too snobby to go camping. So my mum came. So there was me, my mum, and the kids at Latitude Festival, me talking about space. And do you know, it was incredible. I was blown away. I hadn't really been in that setting before. And actually, there were so many different forms of, you know, engineering, science, you know, STEM more broadly, just all in the mix. And, you know, a bunch of concerts going on and things like that, and trying to pull my mum away from signing up to Extinction Rebellion every half an hour. But it was, you know, and I think we do have to think more creatively about it, because you can't foist content onto an audience that's going to feel uncomfortable in a setting that's going to make them uncomfortable. You have to go to their manor, don't you? You have to find their yard and present it there.
I think maybe one more question from the room, and then we'll do one or two online, and I think we need to close.
Thanks very much. Actually, I'll stand up because you can't see me. Hi there. First of all, can I say a huge thank you for the passion that's coming from the table, from you, Alice, from Amanda, who's had to go, and from Helen. And I know how much work Jelena's done. I'm proud to be on the education stakeholder group. a really big feature which we've forgotten is that this is the 20th anniversary of the STEM Ambassadors program. And so I'm going to talk about reward and recognition for the ambassadors. They do a lot of activity for outreach and support. I think reward and recognition of the ambassadors themselves is a really key feature. And actually live right now is the awards, the National STEM Inspiration Awards. So maybe that's something to think about for our members who are STEM ambassadors. The real question for me is about entrepreneurship. We've talked about innovation and creativity around engineering, technology, and science. But I think we sometimes forget that young people have no boundaries. And I'm looking over to Susan over there from Primary Engineer, that I think young people, we give them a disservice to a certain extent, that sometimes they come up with the most incredible ideas. How do we take those ideas and help those people become really the new entrepreneurs in engineering, technology, and science? And I've got a great example of a patent attorney in London that did some pro bono work with a 16-year-old girl, and she's now doing engineering at Imperial. That patent went live worldwide. That will tell you that these things can happen and should happen. Thank you.
So a question. So, I mean, I think part of my passion around schools is actually making sure that we have teachers and that we have curriculum and people going into the schools, because I think that entrepreneurship is a massive agenda. The whole notion of new ideas, and the leadership awards that Primary Engineer run is a fantastic mechanism to get young people engaged and to draw out the potential for new innovations. But I do think it probably does need more engineers to be actively engaged in the curriculum in some form or another. I don't necessarily mean, teaching mechanics or anything like that. I mean genuinely in terms of that wider problem solving.
And I think, thank you for the question and the statement as well, because I think they're actually linked. So I think that's a fantastic observation around reward and recognition, and we absolutely need to do something systematically going forwards. And we've been looking at it in the round in the institution, actually, and there's other areas where we feel that we haven't quite got that right. So thank you for that excellent suggestion, and we'll roll that on. But the link, I think, is about celebrating success. So when you talk about that example of the 16-year-old girl, we need to celebrate that success, because I think there's something about kids being able to see possibilities, to see a potential future. And, perhaps it's something, particularly in the UK, it's not necessarily the same across the world, but perhaps there's something in the UK that's in our psyche that we need to recognise here. There's a humility, which is a wonderful personality trait, but perhaps not helpful when we're trying to, showcase this wealth of opportunity. I think back particularly to, during my career, I've spent quite a lot of time in the US and looking at the attitude there, particularly in startups and stuff like space. Partly it's because access to private finance is a lot easier, but the expectation is that one should be able to do that. And I think we need to bring back that same expectation to the UK, but celebrating the successes as they happen is such an important part of that.
I should say that patent attorney, they were STEM ambassadors that were working at a big bank fair, in fact, and that's where it actually originated from.
Fantastic.
So it does work. Yeah.
Fantastic.
I think if we take one question perhaps from our online attendees, and then we will move to closing remarks. So this is from John, and it's to do with the school curriculum. So the question is, as a school governor at a local primary and secondary school, I'm acutely aware that engineering does not form part of the school curriculum. How does the panel see this changing?
Oof. Do we need the curriculum to change, or do we need teachers who have an understanding of engineering that can translate the curriculum that they are teaching to a context, whether that's society or whether it's economy? I am passionate about the GCSE engineering, and I know there are some schools that are running that, and that's I'm sure that's great, and the T levels as well that are coming in September. But I think we've got to probably be a little bit more sophisticated, and I think to equip parents and teachers and the young people themselves with the engineering language, I think probably is more powerful. You know, you can go into a school and talk about history, and people have the language around being able to talk about the context in which that history refers, and more people have that language. But I bet there's not that many teachers in schools that can actually look at any aspects of curriculum, and even from a history perspective, actually talk about what does that translate into in terms of engineering. You know, I don't know, canals, you know, movement of materials via canals. How would that then get translated into sort of the engineering that was available at that time, and you know, how Telford pulled people together and problem solve, and that. So I think we've got to probably be a little bit more creative in how we translate curriculum.
What Helen said.
If we have time, maybe for one last question. So it's more broad, and it's to do with mentoring and coaching. So it's from Claire Roach, and the question is, have we considered implementing a mentoring coaching scheme for young people, not just graduates?
We being IMechE
I see.
running it. I mean, I referred to the importance of mentoring and coaching in my opening address, and I do think it is really important. I think it's. I mean, my understanding is that we actually do have probably a more informal approach around mentoring and coaching, supporting the professional development of people through the different categories of membership. And I think that's a really great, I think as well as the reward and recognition, I think that mentoring and coaching question potentially is something that we need to take away and do a bit more thinking about.
I think it's a really good shout. And it is, again, I sort of come back to, it's a busy landscape. There's lots of people doing brilliant things. Where can we add the most value? Where can we add the most value? And, you know, intuitively one would think with a membership of 115,000, that value in linking people up who will mutually benefit from the mentor-mentee relationship or the coaching-coachee relationship, intuitively feels like something we could do more in. I think you're absolutely right. I think, you know, the good news is a lot of it happens already organically. What could we do to amplify that, to put that on a big platform, make more opportunity happen? I'm just going to chuck it back to you, Jelena. I think it's something for you and Lydia to be thinking about.
I think probably from the diversity and inclusion lens, there is real value in taking that forward in some mechanisms, because it may be that some of those that are underrepresented at the moment perhaps don't have access to the same mentoring and coaching networks that some others might have. So I think it is an important kind of lens that we need to look at what we're doing about.
Okay, thank you very much. And apologies that we've run over time. So I'm going to close the panel session and invite our president, Peter Flynn, for the closing remarks. Thank you very much.
Right, well, it is afternoon now, isn't it? Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Yes, Peter Flynn, I'm the 136th president of our institution. As I keep saying, it hasn't changed. This is number one, George Stevenson, who was born in 1781, I believe, and you can tell already that I'm obsessed with numbers. My own background is very much in industry, and in fact I live just north of Amanda, who's gone now, just north of Derby. And next door neighbours include people who work for Rolls-Royce and Toyota, as it so happens. And as I say, most of my time has been in industry, but I did have a spell where I set up a number of engineering research centres. And the thing I learned from that, incidentally, was nothing to do with engineering research. It was all about law, finance, getting government on side, hiring people, and so on. And I think that's an interesting illustration of how, you know, a career or an approach which starts off doing hard sums, you know, ends up doing these very broad activities. I mean, personally, I was quite fortunate in that I had actually quite a classic education. And I wanted to be an engineer from quite an early age. My father was in the Royal Engineers during the Second World War, I formed the impression that engineers did practical things. They built bridges and dug trenches and things of that sort. And Meccano was the thing that sort of took me forward. So I knew what was a crossed thread at about the age of 7. And you know, things have gone downhill since then. That's right, yes. And the only sort of more unconventional thing I suppose I've done is I did do an MBA actually by part-time study, so I did have that experience. And I've spent this year explaining to anyone who's prepared to listen about the pivotal role that engineers play in 21st century society, and the positive effect of engineering, not the process, but the positive effect of it. And we're all extremely aware of climate change and decarbonisation of energy and so on. And clearly, it's only engineers who are going to solve problems of that sort. But also, on a slightly different scale, infectious diseases. And one of the other numbers that I track, as Alice will recall, is how many COVID vaccines have been made in the world in the last, whatever it is, 12 or 18 months. Today's figure is 11.18 billion. And last week or the week before, I had the good fortune to meet someone who was in vaccine production. And the point that he made was that the lab, he worked for GSK, and the lab that produced the first of the vaccines that we currently enjoy, if that's the right word, is capable of producing 1,000 a month. And annual monthly production now across the world is 500 million. So if I've done my sums right, things have been scaled up by a factor of 500,000. And that's through engineers. And that's the sort of positive thing that we can explain to children. So there are three things I've drawn from today's discussion. First of all, the point I just made, that the vital role that our institution, its membership, can play at large, and it does play. Secondly, the role that we can play in increasing the level of research and development in this country. Again, it's a pity Amanda has gone, but one of the things they're weak on, although we're, as a nation, we're quite strong on innovation generally, we don't spend enough money. We spend about half as much as countries like Israel and South Korea on R&D. And you know, more engineers can lead to more expenditure, which leads to more success. But the third point I'd make is the beneficial effect of affordable manufactured products. And we've already mentioned health products, but everyday items that make our lives easier, like vacuum cleaners. I usually look around for a Coke can at this stage, but we haven't got one. But there's a lot of engineering in the Coke can. And one that appeals to me, there was a guy who went to the same college as I did in Cambridge, about 10 years older than me, and he developed a device which I'd almost guarantee that all of you have got. Who's got an electric kettle? Anyone who's not got an electric kettle? Well, you know, you switch it on, and about 2 minutes later it goes click. And he developed that click. And they make millions of these a year. It's a very nice business. It's a very simple illustration of the practical things that engineers do. So, I mean, it's been very interesting today. I hadn't realised, quite honestly, we had so many STEM ambassadors. 7,500 is a huge number. You know, thank you to everybody who's supporting that. I've had more units of commitment and inspiration today than I've had for a long time. The place is, you know, the atmosphere is electric. And thank you very much indeed for that. To everyone. Helen, obviously, you put a huge amount of effort into this. Alice, I can tell that, you know, it's one of your top subjects. And everyone around here, Susan, Fred, and so on, you know, it's tremendous. So thank you very much indeed, everybody, for your contribution. And finally, can I thank Jelena in particular, staff more generally, you know, for organising today's event. I know they're quite nerve-wracking events, so hopefully you can sort of relax a little bit until the next one comes along. So thank you very much indeed, everybody, and enjoy your lunch.